Hi, everybody, and welcome to the GGDA's June meeting. And a special thanks to Pulseworks for hosting us, and for the incredible pizza, and for the incredible VR rides everyone's been doing. So I'm looking forward to introducing our speakers. We'll have more announcements at the end when they're done talking. We'll have time for questions, both from our audience and from you on the stream. So thank you, everyone on Mixer watching tonight. If you're watching on Mixer, we have recently set up a Patreon program to help you support our live streaming efforts and our efforts to bring more game development education to everybody. So please check that out in our channel description, and everyone else here is welcome to do that as well. We appreciate y'all being GGDA members, but you can do that as well if you are so inclined and want more of the live streaming. But over here at Pulseworks, you've already seen them doing some incredible stuff with the VR rides here. Their rides there at the Air and Space Museum. You guys got to try out one that will be shipping out of here in 4 days for the Denver Science Museum. So thanks for helping them test it. But I'm very happy to introduce two of the leads on their software dev side who'll be talking tonight about Pulseworks and about the development work they've been doing here in Georgia. And these guys have had to survive some massive obstacles to get here. They've had to survive the military, and then they had to survive some teachers at game dev they didn't much care for. So anyway, so I'm very happy. Wow, we're getting more and more Pulseworks folks at the front. This is great. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Pulseworks now to go ahead and explain what they do and how wonderful it is.
Testing. Hey guys, welcome to Pulseworks. You probably don't know who we are. We've been in business since '98. We're a turnkey operation. We develop ticketed motion simulation rides at museums around the country. Before VR, our most popular simulator was probably the 360 here, which you'll get to try if you haven't already. You get to do full, what's that?
Hold the mic, hold it up to your mouth.
Okay, how's this, better? Okay. All right. So we develop our own hardware, our own motion bases. We develop the content and the middleware that marries the two together. And so we have complete control, creative control over our ticketed experiences. We staff all the sites around the country and make a lot of money for our partners. I'm the production lead. I've been here since '09. So I handle outsourcing, development approach, platform, choices such as what engine we use. We've been using Unity for over 8 years now. Just started using Unreal with this release. Design lead, so I focus on high-level design, identify and develop future Pulseworks products and services, which includes more interactive experiences, which will be coming down the pike. Volume tracking, standing, interactive VR, there's a lot that's in the oven. And as needed, I'll do modeling, texturing, character rigging, animation. But I like to leave the programming and the previs storyboarding to Sam and Taylor here, and I'll let them introduce themselves real quick.
Hello. Hi, I'm Taylor Meyers, programmer. I program interacting with the machine, networking, optimization, and yeah, pretty much anything else. Normally, I develop more of the game side, so I did a lot on the i360 air combat, but not so much on that, more the networking, getting it to run properly, and optimizing it.
Hey guys, my name's Sam. I'm a content artist. I do the art. So, as well as the previs and the story development, camera paths and that sort of thing.
All right, thank you. Now, let's go ahead and break down what makes a Pulseworks simulator. So we've got our VR headsets, as you see, and we will use whatever works best for us and our applications, the highest resolution that we can find. Right now, we're using the Oculus CV1. We build our own motion bases. This is the one you see over here is a 3-axis motion base. And we build our own custom computers, too. And put the best video cards and hardware in those. So one of the primary things that makes our offering so compelling is the motion plus VR. When you're in the virtual world, your eyes are telling you you're moving. However, your inner ear is not getting the input that it needs, except on our simulators. So we've done tests and are actually able to send people on roller coasters who could not previously handle that kind of experience in VR with no issues at all. So that's a pretty powerful proposition. We combine the motion in VR with things like 4D effects. We'll have a cool breeze on you to sort of give you the sense that you're in the frigid space environment that you see in VR. We may have vibration at appropriate times. We don't want to overdo it. If anyone's been to the world of Coke and been punched in the back with those seats and those 4D effects, they know that it can be overdone. Or leg ticklers every few minutes. Yeah, so we don't want it to pull you out. We want you to go even deeper into VR, and we want 4D effects to assist in that. Spacewalk. It's our first project with Unreal 4, our first VR ticketed attraction. So we were pretty precautious with this one. It's only 3.5 minutes. People still feel like they get a great bang for their buck. Sorry if I'm misstepping. I'm hearing my own voice in my ear right now. It's difficult to deal with. Yeah, so it's a 3.5 minute ride. Internally, like I said, we did plenty of testing on the nausea issue and had no problems. But on our first foray into the ticketed world, where we're serving thousands of people every week, we didn't want to have that be the end-all, be-all. We wanted to still send it out there. A pretty smooth, gentle motion path and a short experience. And what we wanted to do was really dial in on what makes VR so unique. So one of the assets in Spacewalk that I really wanted to focus on was a fantastic low Earth orbit. Because VR is so powerful in delivering a sense of scale and distance, I knew that when we looked down and saw that Earth beneath you, it would just do all that wow for you. You would get that impact in this new media. Using that plus motion, we're really able to sell the experience to the rider. And on a practical side, just like normal game development, you definitely want to avoid GPU, CPU, bound frames. We don't want to overdo it. Even though we can use the top-end PCs, they still have limitations. We still can't go crazy with materials, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to go with Unreal, is off the shelf I could get an incredibly high quality result without a ton of optimization. There's so much already built in, and internally supported editors. When it came to the proposition between looking at Unity and Unreal, things like Cascade, Matinee, Blueprint, material creation through the material editor in Unreal really stood out. Through Unity, we would have to get a third-party piece of software, and hopefully they would keep it updated throughout our development cycle. If not, then we'd have to contact them. A lot of you know this dance, I'm sure, for any project that's complex. So the development of this piece of content, it's all real time, of course, because it occurs in the game engine. It's not pre-recorded and then fed through these computers. This is all happening in real time. So we can actually pivot from here and go interactive when it's warranted. And we've had talks about doing things like adding a button in front of the person riding on these four-seaters so that they could, you know, have a simple level of interaction to start with, to have some influence over their environment. And that's totally possible now. Let's see. So this was a 1.5 months production time to finish this, 3.5-minute experience. In order to meet that goal, I had to identify what aspects of this project were the sticking points, what were the unknowns. And there are multiple ways to handle something like a low Earth orbit. And there were some options in the marketplace. They weren't up to snuff. I knew there'd be a better way to do it. The first thing we wanted to take care of, like most development cycles that you guys are familiar with, is previs. So we did quite a few of these, I think 5 or so previs cycles with different events to get a sense of the motion intensity, the spacing of events, to make sure something impactful was happening to you on a regular basis. And this also speeds up production because then I can go into Unreal, build the motion path through then Matinee, now Sequencer, and then create the environment around that. The motion is one of, if not the most important part to a ride film. We want to take advantage of that motion base over there. So we eventually settled on 3.5 minutes and a final motion path, and we began production. While Sam was doing this, I was in Unreal getting back up to speed. Some of my history is in Unreal 3, so I was already familiar with Matinee and at that time Kismet. So I was looking forward to working with this kid again. The other major part of the decision to switch to Unreal was that it was now financially accessible to a team our size. You know, a year ago, this month, was about the time when they were changing their structure. And so we fall under arcades. So we don't have to pay Epic a dime for anything that we release. And not only do we think about what's next for motion entertainment when married with VR, we also think about the various applications. Training. Beyond training, we can take a look at sales approach. I mean, there are a lot of different ways we can utilize VR and custom content and these motion bases. So let's dive into the editor and take a look at some of this art and some of the more important aspects of it. So the first thing I'd like to take a look at is that low Earth orbit. It's all in a blueprint. The most important part of this is the material. It's a single material instance fed from a master material. So previous approaches I've seen to this have taken more than one sphere and had that top sphere be clouds, cast dynamic shadows onto the Earth's surface. And this was very inefficient. There's no getting around using large textures to get this kind of coverage and resolution. But what we could do is fake the shadows. So what was done here was the clouds were taken and then an offset was applied. And so they pan along with the clouds, and we simply match our directional light to the angle of those shadows. And so this gets mixed down in the end into a single material. And we can change the pan speed of the clouds to be a bit faster than the Earth. And this is our set of 4 chunks. These guys are coming in, as you can see, at 4096 by 2048. Then they're applied to their appropriate UV space, and the whole thing is panned along. So this was a huge time saver because we had some help from guys over in Australia named Opaque Media. They were building an interactive space experience, and they were the second group I had talked to, and they were happy to share this with us as long as we had them in the credits. So this saved a lot of time figuring out exactly how we wanted to do this low Earth orbit efficiently in VR. And so this feeds into maybe my favorite feature of Unreal, which is material instancing. Every instance that's from a single master is a much more efficient draw call overhead. Much less overhead than drawing a new material because of its reference to a parent material. So to show you that, we'll go to the space station. So we can pick any one of these. And you can see, of course, each one of these is a draw call. However, they all have the same master material. And usually when people use this process, they will have a different master material for metals, fabrics, plastics, so on. But with this, it's all one. The fabrics are also piped in from the same master material. The only other master we have is one for masks. Anything that uses masking has to be a new master material. So this is a physically based setup, and the basic difference between a physically based shader and your typical shader is that we don't need lighting information baked into the textures. The textures need to represent the materials of the object itself. And then how light interacts with those different textures is handled by this physically based setup. Metallic, roughness, specular. And so this is scalable, and it focuses on using tiled textures. Everything in here is tiled. From the fabric to the metal, whatever type it is. And you can see, bouncing off the sun, those micro variations that I was hovering over. And then we can go in here and simply check the box that needs to be replaced to get the material you want. So this PBR is what's informing this material to look more like a fabric instead of a metal. And this is far cheaper than in, say, Unity using separate materials. And the other advantage of using instance materials is that you're able to make broad changes quickly. So say you wanted, these to be bronze panels and the bronze metal to be, the more silver looking panels, then you could easily do that. Right now, this is all dynamically lit. Our original release was not. It was a mix between light maps and dynamic lighting. Previously, we released on 4.11, and we're running a 980 Ti. Now we're up to a 1080, and this is 4.15. That's the other thing I really like about using Unreal. The massive bug-crushing releases and updates, because they crowdsource it. So you want to be careful with the number of cascades. It can be crushing to your performance, but sometimes you need them. So we've got a single directional light in this setup. And as you can see, it makes a big difference. Less accuracy, but a lot more performance. Now, some of the things that we need to focus on using VR is the limitations of deferred rendering, which we had to deal with a year ago with Unreal. Now, as some of you know, they have a forward renderer solution, so we can have better anti-aliasing. But light noise was a big issue when we couldn't use anti-aliasing. So to try to combat that, we use something called super sampling in Unreal. And what it basically does is it scales the amount of image into your resolution. So we can go to 130% screen scale, and that'll get you a more accurate representation of specular highlights and things like that that could actually create visual noise and distraction for you. Now we're able to kick that up quite a bit more, and we're combining that currently with temporal anti-aliasing. Stereo instancing is another thing that Unreal uses to try to lessen the burden of rendering everything twice, which is what we do in VR. And not every project is the same, obviously. So for Spacewalk, we almost have no atmosphere. The only reason we have a little bit of atmosphere is so we can get these light shafts. And unless you have the super sampling high enough, you won't even get that through the VR headsets. So super sampling without anti-aliasing was a problem in this project. because everything was very clean and crisp due to a lack of atmosphere, a lack of fog. Not so true for another project. Something like an underwater project. So this is using no anti-aliasing, only super sampling. Temporal anti-aliasing here actually makes everything look very muddy, even with high super sampling. But when you're outside, you can see with no anti-aliasing, it's pretty jagged.
That whirlpool is massive. This looks too dangerous.
These subs can handle.
And there we have a missing whirlpool. So I just wanted to generally touch on some areas of Unreal that were important for this small project, and kind of open the floor to any questions you guys have about it. That's actually the temporal. Sure. So when you were riding Spacewalk just now, you noticed that there was a bit of a swirling effect when you looked down at the clouds, the low Earth orbit, right? And was that almost sort of a heat distortion sort of swirling effect, or?
It kind of looks a little bit like moving clockwise and counterclockwise, depending on how I move my head. I mean, first of all, it was gorgeous. Really
Sure. So. Appreciate it. So the clouds themselves swirling, the whole surface? Okay.
Yeah, if that was just something to do with some of the sub-sampling or...
Here, let me get you, and you have to speak up in the audience, but this way the folks on the line.
Sure.
This way you can clarify what you're saying.
Just that you can sound like I'm very loud here.
No.
They can hear you all.
You can just grab this one.
All right, yeah, if you want to jump on that.
No reach at all.
Up here. Okay. And like we both are like wearing white shirts, it's kind of weird. Anyway, when I was using the Spacewalk, when I was looking at it, the clouds looking down on Earth kind of looked a little bit like they were swirling a little bit. Like, you know, when you kind of moved your head sideways, they actually looked like they were kind of, it was a little trippy, like they were kind of rotating. I didn't know if that was something to do with the stereoscopy, or there was something to do with subsampling or something like that, but I just wanted to know if you noticed it, if you kind of knew like what was happening there.
Sure. Yeah, and this one that you guys are writing today is one we're still currently working on. This is the 4.15 release with the newest version of Unreal. So we're trying some new things. And one of those is temporal AA. And temporal AA in VR is a tough nut to crack, and you have to combat it with super sampling. So what happens? What's that?
What's
Anti-aliasing. Yeah, temporal anti-aliasing.
Yes,
yeah.
what is AAA? Is anti-aliasing.
Alcoholics Anonymous. So yeah, it's temporal. But yeah, so one of the issues with temporal AA is if you don't have the resolution, it's going to look very muddy, and you can have ghosting, right? So if you have, say, we've experimented by kicking the super sampling down to 30%, which means we're seeing 30% stretched over the resolution of the headset display. And you will see moving objects leave a ghost behind. When super sampling's increased to a higher level, it actually looks a little bit like heat distortion or twisting or something weird going on. Right. So that's what I think that is, and we're working to try to figure out a way to deal with that.
Again, it was not a big deal. It was
Yeah.
I was trying to understand a little bit
No,
more.
we're picky. We're picky. We're very picky about this stuff, especially one like this that's about to go out to a site, you know, and people are going to pay money for it.
If you have questions, come on up here, take this microphone, that one. Still speak loudly.
Yeah. I'll do that. Yeah, I think that might work better if you kind of like place it here as opposed to there.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Or maybe even here. Oh,
I gotta talk
that's
about this.
better.
Okay, cool, gotcha.
Talking into the wrong side. Apparently there's a right side to a mic with a mesh around the whole thing.
That was one of the questions that I had. I think to piggyback off of that, you were saying that what was really awesome about Unreal is the updates. And so I'm wondering, do they update you with like real-time math about what light looks like when the Earth is rotating at a certain speed? You know what I mean?
Are you talking about Epic?
I'm talking about the images that you generate.
Oh, in real time.
Yes.
Okay.
And like his was swirling clouds. How do you do that? And mine is like, yeah, how'd you do that? Like, is that Unreal updating you with images that you can just go to that library that you were talking about?
No. No, that shader that I was going over was custom made. Yeah, so it's a material editor that exists inside the engine, the editor itself, the tool set. So that was built, yeah.
Okay, wow.
No, that's one of the great things about Unreal, honestly. Unity has these capabilities, but you have to buy software made by someone that's not Unity to do that, right? Shader Forge is the equivalent in Unity.
I had two questions.
Sure.
The first one was, I did see normal maps listed for your materials, right?
Right.
Did you generate those with high poly sculpts, or did you use something like Quixel or Substance Designer, or inside of Unreal?
This set wasn't, Sam can talk about the shuttle. The tiling materials was from our friends at Opaque. So I'm not sure if they used a sculpt or they used Quixel or something like that. If it's tiling, I would imagine Quixel or something like that. Not a sculpt if it's tiling, even though it's possible. But generating normals for the shuttle, for instance, did you just do that in Photoshop or did you generate it from the mesh?
As far as the shuttle went, if I remember, there's a bunch of 4K maps, and some of it was done within the 3D application, Modo. Some of it was done in Photoshop, this way. And some of it was done in Painter as well. So it just kind of depended on what material, what was going to be the best or quickest way to do it. And a lot of the normals, if I painted it in Photoshop, that was just done in Photoshop with a filter. So.
My other question was, you mentioned that it's rendered real time.
Yes.
And that you didn't do pre-rendered, but is that for future interactivity? Because if you don't have, you know, the button you were talking about now, why not do like a stereoscopic POV? Why not do pre-rendered?
Right. Because making it interactive would be so easy, we wouldn't even need, say, a button, honestly. You could do look targets. So you could look at something and have a UI pop up, something like that.
So it's for future interactivity?
It is, and it's proven reliable. So there's no good reason, I guess, to render out what's in. It's possible. And these guys at Opaque were trying to make a custom plugin to capture that in 360, but there were issues in terms of not capturing post-processing effects, things that need to happen at real time.
Right.
So I'm sure it's possible, but it wasn't worth the work to do something that would just undercut our ability to make it interactive.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, as others come up for questions, I'd love for you guys to talk about your specific skill sets and what you do within the team.
Sure.
And how big your company is. By questions of Puzzles by Joe.
All right. I think we're at about 200 people. Very few here, more like 15 maybe. So we design, dream up, and produce the products here. But most of our employees run the sites at the different locations around the country. How many locations? You'd have to ask Raj what the current count is on that. I don't know how many total yet.
The answer is not enough.
Never enough. Yeah, so what was your other question? How many employees and what? Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
The
Right.
question is, how many locations Pulseworks has?
Right. Well, we spent a lot of our time maintaining, updating current sites. That's been a big part of it. Because, did you need to say something?
He was asking me something. There's also a question on the stream. How many of your rides and attractions and projects are actually located in Georgia?
None yet. That could change very soon. Very soon.
And what are your specific roles and skill sets? Can you break those down?
All right. Well, I come from a level design background. I went to school for game art and design, so I'm on that side of design, not a programmer. I do some scripting, but in terms of modeling, it can be organic, hard surface, texture generation. I can do that in multiple, different ways, and have. Just whatever the project demands. Rigging, some fairly complex rigs. I can show you a guy here. You'll see a Lipleurodon come swimming around here eventually. But so yeah, hand animation, rigging, modeling, texture art, not too much in the way of sketching, but everything in the engine, really, from lighting setup, creating materials. Here he comes, my pet Lipleurodon, yeah. So this guy had a pretty dense rig, had a spline on his tail, spline solver. So, yeah, pretty much everything on the art side. Particle systems, already mentioned shaders, lighting setup, motion paths, just organizing and building the entire scene inside of Unreal or Unity.
Again, my name is Sam. I'm also an artist, 3D artist, CG. Is what I've mostly been doing until we started doing a lot of the VEO stuff. So taking, whether it's Time Jump or Spacewalk, basically we'll start off with the stories and the research and kind of experiment with camera paths and how far can we push the story within the time limit. I'll do the previs, block out the proxy models, render that stuff out, and we'll sit around and bat it around and say yes, no, that's going to work, that's not going to work. Once we kind of get the story figured out, Orion takes over in terms of the level design stuff, and then I'll go and work on art assets like Space Shuttle has got up here. So just the modeling, the texturing, the shaders. Sometimes I do some particle stuff or whatever needs to get done, rigging and animation. But most of my time, besides modeling, is probably spent with like the storyboarding, the previs, CG stuff for some of the film stuff that we've done. I don't think they're seeing any of that today, right? No. I don't have any CG. Yeah. So, yeah, that's basically it, just art stuff.
Hello, yeah, I'm Taylor Meyers again. All right. I think everybody needs to experience this microphone because it's gut churning to hear your own voice while you're talking. That's why I slow down. It's like quicksand. Anyway, yeah, it's melting my brain right now. So just had to say that. I'm a programmer. I primarily deal with gameplay, networking, As I said earlier, a majority of my work was done on the i360. So gameplay, flow, AI, menus, HUD interaction. Otherwise, for the more ride films of Spacewalk and Time Jump, I primarily just deal with the rides starting at the same time for all headsets and optimizing it. Orion will create a build and throw it to me to run session front end, pinpoint where all the problems are, hang-ups, troublesome FPS drops, and explore and experiment with the settings to create a workable. It's often negotiating of me going, this isn't working, so you need to do something about that. As far as skill sets, I have a background in C# and C++, and this microphone. C++. Otherwise, I try and work in blueprints so that Orion can make changes as necessary, and it's otherwise just more easily readable for him rather than massive amounts of code for him to try and modify it. So, yeah.
Just to force you to keep talking with that microphone, talk
Okay.
a little bit about being a programmer
Oh,
using
okay.
Blueprint.
It's interesting being traditionally trained with C# at DeVry. Blueprints is really good. You can do stuff quicker, and it's really fun to make it look pretty, right? You get to line everything up and reroute, and there's all sorts of colors, but hey, it's the little joys, right?
A programmer who talks about pretty code is
Yeah, right. Who are you? But yeah, as you can see on here, it can become convoluted. So this, I believe, this is Orion's handiwork, so I'm not claiming this. Yeah, he used structures, big advances. So as you can see, it does turn into spaghetti code sometimes, so you really have to watch how you're executing functions, and it really helps to plan ahead of time what level of access you're going to need with the engine, how deep you're going to need to go, and how complicated it's going to be to decide whether it should be done traditionally through the scripting rather than the blueprints.
Can you guys talk a little bit more about your expansion plans, growth plans, and what you're looking for internally, what you're needing to come in-house with you?
Sure.
Talk to the right side.
Right side, okay. Identifying. That's the right one. So we're a very small team. Spacewalk was a majority of the time just one person, whether it was me or Taylor. It went up to 4 at one point, contributors. But we need people that can take on multiple things and have skills in multiple areas. The exception here is Taylor. He's a special child. He only needs to know programming. But programming's important, obviously, extremely. So that's justified. But everyone else needs to have multiple skills. So Sam here is able to work on game art assets and understand the needs and limitations that may exist. But he can also go in and do video production, render out special effects, start looking at what it takes to render out, say, a high-end particle system, and then bring that into the engine and make it happen. He can help do that. Previs, sketches, things like that. So even though it's well within being an artist, there are quite a few different areas that he's worked on, animation included recently. So that's what we're looking for on the art side. And on the programming side, we really need someone who can take on C++ and C#, object-oriented programming. And I would say, especially for the programmer, they need to be someone interested in gaming, because there is a dialogue between people who have played video games that's much more efficient and honestly clear. And you can get each other, and the feel that you're going for is easier to describe and communicate, and it's a valuable thing, especially as we go more and more interactive. So being able to communicate with me and I in return, being able to describe something as, you know, when I hit this guy in combat, I want it to feel meaty and solid. I don't want a floaty feel, okay? When I run around, I want it to be a heavy, impactful situation. So, yeah, things like that.
I love that. The neural network that exists among gamers so they can communicate and non-gamers can't penetrate.
Yeah.
So you talked about transitioning from Unity to Unreal. Did that require you guys to change your skill sets? Do you think it helps someone to have a Unity background as well?
At their core, they want the same things from you. When it comes to rendering out a frame of a real-time experience, the things that will drain Unity are the same things that will drain and limit Unreal. So texture sizes that are larger than they need to be, that's a big one. Poly count isn't as much of an issue anymore, but back in the day, that was one as well. They needed to be low poly counts. Animation, right? So if you have a bone influencing more than 3 verts at a time, that's an issue for the CPU. And that's regardless of whether you're in Unreal or Unity. Having a skill set in Unreal is a little more valuable, because Unreal, with its systems like Cascade, Material Editor, Matinee, these are things that have been supported a very long time. And they have a certain method that they use to generate the assets. So that's valuable. But
So we have a question from online, and you can tell that this question comes from online. They're wondering how much fabrication of the rides happens here in your shop. Can we pan around with one of the cameras so
a lot of it.
they can get a sense? This is really a
Not
maker's
all
dream
the
space.
fiberglass, but pretty much everything else.
Yeah, this is kind of a maker like me's dream space to play around in.
Right. Well, that was the most exciting thing for me coming from level design, was to be able to make content that would have a custom interface, where I could collaborate with the people who are making the interface. I'm not beholden to a cell phone or a console or its controllers or peripherals. We can come up with our own.
Yeah, for those who've had a chance to look around the room, there's an amazing variety of tools, rides, and more in-house here. How often do you actually have to go out on site to test out the machine, say at the Air and Space Museum?
I haven't been yet. I need to go. Don't I, Rob? I need to go out to Air and Space. Yeah, no, I haven't been out too many times. I rely on others and their feedback. But yeah, perfectly willing and happy to go.
Any other questions from the audience here or online? Yeah.
I noticed that, I'm just getting over here, I guess. I noticed that in the beginning of the ride that there were these kind of like flaming eyeballs that
Right.
everyone had. When I looked around, what is that for?
Right. That's just us quickly taking advantage of the fact that you're all networked, so that you could look around and notice that there's another entity there with you, even in the VR world.
Okay. It's a little scary.
It's a little scary.
It's a little scary. I mean, you know, you're not
Yeah.
thinking you're going to go out in outer space. Like you kind of think that there's a
Right.
hell demon that's
Yeah.
about to take over your body.
That's kind of what I like about it.
Well, I mean, it is cool. I mean, it's cool. But, you know,
Yeah.
okay.
I got you. I mean, if you're wearing an astronaut helmet, the helmet doesn't move when you look around. We needed something that made a bit of sense. And if we were going to do a character model, that would need to be androgynous, and we'd need to figure out the inverse kinematic solution, right? So if you're, which means, I'll tell you. So IK is basically the rotation input from your HMD driving your neck, and then your neck driving your body, moving your body around. It's the tail wagging the dog, in essence. We'd have to figure that out for it to work.
So you couldn't do just VR goggles.
We could do floating VR
you could have
goggles.
VR goggles instead of
but
Hellfire.
it's a very
eyeballs.
dark, yeah, we would have to lighten up the environment, but it's possible. Make them glowy around the edges, yes. We could certainly replace that, yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
Halloween, a Halloween theme is definitely
Right.
in order, right?
Right. Well, yeah, no, that's good. It makes me wonder how many crying children have come off the ride. Hopefully not too many.
My eyes are bleeding, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
always good.
Maybe they just thought it was cool. Little metalheads.
So you ready for the Halloween update where there's a knock at the space shuttle airport? open outside?
Absolutely.
All right, excellent.
Yeah, the guy welcoming you back won't be an astronaut. He'll be missing a helmet. Yeah.
The hook hand. All right, so there another question from out in the crowd. Yes.
Thank you. You talked earlier about continuing education, and I was wondering, like, how you did that. Do you do conferences? Do you like study groups? Like, how is it that your education kind of continues? Because I have the idea that once you learn, you practice, and then that's it. But you're talking about multiple systems and
Oh yeah.
and so all those things. So like, how do you engage in that educational process?
Well, like I was saying, there are foundational concepts that really bridge the gap between different game platforms. And I guess that's what you're talking about? Learning a new engine like Unreal? Is that what you're referring to? Right. Song, yeah. Mhm. Sure. It plays a factor. You know, it ties in with being multi-hatted and being a small team and the necessity of being able to, we need to produce high quality work, but we don't always have to do every single asset. So there was a time when none of this stuff existed on the marketplace for either Unreal or Unity, so we just had to make them. That's not always the case. So you've got to be able to take these different, sometimes disparate assets or shaders and combine them. And sometimes that takes some creativity, right? Or you can take an asset off the asset store, notice its weakness, say it's got a crappy material, but the textures are great. We'll remake the material. You're still saving time. So, yeah, Sam, the example you were using, he's also working with, what's the software package that we just got for VR? Nuke? Yeah, Nuke. Yeah, honestly, it's the same for all game developers. We have to be learning all the time. We're teaching ourselves all the time because there's always better techniques and faster ways of getting great results. So, yeah.
All right, I know a lot of you want to get on the rides. We still have some announcements. So one last question. How much time do you guys spend on the rides every week?
Yeah, not every week. No, our noses
not
in the
applying
computers. Yeah, no. The last month of production or so, we're on them quite a bit. I am, for sure. But other than that, no, it's trying to meet deadlines.
All right, sorry you on the stream aren't here to ride the rides. Ryan, do you want to do the announcements tonight? as you hurriedly type on the stream right now. And also on the stream, I believe we had a shout out to our very first Patreon sponsor. So Ryan, I'm going to hand the mic over to you and let you do our announcements and ask for announcements from the crowd.
Also, we just hit our 200th follower on Mixer, so that's pretty dope. Thanks for coming out, guys. Okay, cool. So announcement for, wait, you guys can hear me, right? Loud enough? Cool. All right. So first announcement is about Siege. I can hear myself. First announcement is about Siege. So Jesse Schell is announced as our keynote speaker. So Jesse Schell of Schell Games, writer of Game Feel, so that's pretty dope. All right, next up is going to be SimFest. We are still looking for speaker submissions. That closes in 2 days. If you guys are interested in speaking at SimFest, reach out to Rodrigo Obando. Sorry if I butchered your name, man. If you guys need his contact information, you can grab me afterwards. July meeting details are still to be determined, so keep an eye out on the Facebook for that. And I think that moves on to member announcements. So does anybody have announcements of their own you guys want to shout out? Okay. Well, do you guys want to come up? Microphone? Yeah, Joe.
Just the usual pre-week announcement for we'll be at the Joystick Bar next week, starting around 6:30 to 9. That's the oldest Atlanta game dev group, and that's it. Show up at the Joystick Bar next Tuesday night, the 19th.
Yeah, I think that's right. Cool. Thanks, Joe. All right.
Hi, everyone. Hello. I'm Jessica. This is my first meeting, so thank you all for welcoming me. I work for, thank you. I help run Terminus Conference and Festival, which is going on next week, June 22nd through 25th at the W Midtown. We are very grateful for Andrew and our friends at GGDA for helping us put on some excellent programming. We're going to have a handful of panels that GGDA is presenting. I'll go through them really quickly for you. Game devs who make games, creating great voiceover with Listen Up Audio. We're going to make award-winning game audio with Wabi Sabi Sound. Live streaming like a boss with Matt somewhere. Becoming a journalist with Game Skinny. A game journalist, excuse me. And my journey as a woman in games, as well as making games with Twine. We also have lots of other cool workshops. For those of you who don't know what Terminus is, we're a 4-day event. We focus on college students, recent graduates, and early professionals who are looking to level up their skills, meet fellow creators, and have a good time celebrating their work. We have lots of parties, lots of award ceremonies, lots of networking opportunities, as well as all the workshops and panels, which you can check out at terminusevent.com. And we really hope all of you will attend. I know some of you will probably be presenting there. If you would like to attend, we have a 30% off code for GGDA members. Just use code GGDA, all lowercase, and that'll get you 30% off any badge, be it all access or just the Saturday badge, if that's all you can make it out to. So thank you guys, and hope to see you there.
Thanks, Jessica. All right, any other announcements of the crowd? I know folks want to get on the VR ride, so thank you for showing up. Our next meeting will be July 11th. Remember, next week we'll be doing the stream again. Who do we have on the stream? I know we have it listed up. Oh, yeah, Dr. Unity. So we had the presentation on Unreal. Get ready for talk on Unity next Tuesday night on our stream. So thank you all very much, and yeah, I'm getting in the rides ahead of you all. So take care. And if you're online, we're going to have some more interviews, so stick around for those.